right. Well, the next one I'll tell you about was my crazy one. So, so this was I was a pilot examiner for the FAA for 11 years, and this was my top. I mean, in the first 10 check rides that I did for them, this was a private pilot, and it's a bit of a story, but it will be fun for you. So then you can see what you would have done. I know what I have done now. So when this guy comes and he has a Cessna 152, and he looks like, I call him Harley Dude. So he's got a do-rag on, he's got a long ponytail, a lot of tattoos and piercings. So okay, right? And then he's got sandals on and blue jeans, and he comes in out off. He flies to fly to me. So he flies, parks. I see him, and he gets out of the airplane and he starts like limping a little bit, kind of limping, and he gets towards the place, and I notice that he's like has a wet spot, like where you'd expect maybe you get a wet spot. And I went like, wow, okay. And he says, hey, dude. He says, hey, dude, man, I need to go clean up. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, there's nothing in the regulation against that, right? So, okay. So, and then we go to sit down to do the oral, and this isn't going very well, and he has a plotter, and the plotter was one of these plotters that has a wheel that you can turn, and the kind of the edge of it was kind of chipped and kind of bad. So he's doing all this stuff, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so what's the FAA's mantra? Is test until you're sure, test until you're sure. So I'm like, I'm not quite sure yet, but this isn't going so well. So we keep doing all this stuff. And so after the oral is sort of over, and I'm not sure what his airspace issues, I said, well, I'll just test those in the flight. So I'll give him a real situation. He has to fly into Class Charlie. I'll do something. So then we take off. He leaves. But first he asked me about pre-flighting. He says, can I check the fuel because he's got a bum leg? And I went like, well, no, I think you have to do that, right? And I said, how did you check the fuel on the way over? He goes, he laughs like that. And then I go get him a ladder, and he actually is able to check the fuel. Great. Then we get in the airplane. He's got the window open, and his arm is out like a trucker tan. Got the arm out like this, is whistling, and this. And so we take off a short field takeoff, and then he leaves the flap down 10 degrees, and he keeps it down. And so then we start climbing. I see we're going to level off pretty soon. He goes, man, this is a problem, man. He said, this bird, I wanna climb like that. I'm like, okay. And as we level off, I said, hey, don't exceed an airspeed limitation. And huh? And so I point to the flap that, oh, that's why. So he put the flap up, right? And okay, we're going on. So then I get close to this place. I said, okay, let's divert to Byron Airport. He goes, in flight right now? I said, yeah. So he brings out, he's got an arm out the window, remember? So he brings out the chart, and he's got this plotter with a broken piece, and the wheel snapped off and it flew out the window. And he went after it. Like you can't go after it, you're not going to get it. And so then he approximates something which is totally wrong. And we get, instead of going to Byron, we're off about 35 degrees. We're going more towards Sacramento. Oh, and then I said, where's Byron? And he points to the town, the capital of California. And Byron is about a town of maybe 3,000 people. And then here's the city skyline. And he says, that's it. Points to Sacramento, which is another like 50, 80 miles ahead. So it's not even close. And I said, okay, that's not it. So then I don't know what his mental state is. So I said, Byron's over here. Do you see over there? Yeah, okay. Could we go that way? They have parachute activity there. And so he's not doing anything. We're just going. I said, what's your plan to go to Byron? Because I now want to distract him a little bit. And he's like, I'm going to enter the pattern. I said, how are you going to do it? He said, I'm going to overfly the airport. And I said, okay. So we get closer, and he doesn't have a seat, nothing. And all of a sudden you see these parachutes. And I said, what's that? He goes, oh, that's cool. This, I said, what's your plan? I'm going to overfly the airport, and with the drop zones right at the airport. I'm like, oh God. So anyway, we skip that. And now I think he's crazy. I'm pretty sure he's something wrong with him. So then we go, I said, let me distract him because I've got 35 miles to get back to Reed Hillview Airport. And I don't know what he's going to do. So I don't know. It looks kind of rough around the edges. So anyway, I give him a ground reference maneuver to do. And then he says to me, he's got the hand out, the arm out the way. He says, man, I says, I don't feel so good. I'm like, oh boy, okay, you don't feel very, no, I don't feel good at all. I was like, okay. And so then I climb. I said, let me take control over this. I climb, try to get out of this turbulence which you're in. And then he's over there like looking green and looking pretty bad. And so then that distracts him. I'm not unhappy because he's not puking, right? So on the way back, he's okay. I think I feel okay now. I said, all right. So I gave him back control for about 4 miles from the airport, and then we enter the pattern. And there's if you don't know Reed Hillview Airport, there's a mall there that right before on final, and there's always conflict between the mall, the neighbors, and the airport. And this didn't help. So what happened was we come in on final, and he says, man, I'm getting sick again. And we're like, what? It says, yeah. And then he started like a cat with a hairball, like like this, right? And so I knew, but the window was open. So I took the ponytail like that, and I cinched his head backwards. So his face, his head was out the window backwards. And we're right over the mall parking lot. And he goes, what? Over the parking lot of the mall. Of course, that's raining down. That's why they don't like us anymore. And we land, or I land. And then he opened the door. Now the door is open, and he's puking out the door. And so then off the taxi we would go, and he says, oh man, did I pass? I said, no, you did not pass. You failed worse than anybody could imagine, right? And then so anyway, he gets back to the parking lot. Everything's okay. I don't know what his story is now. And then I called his flight instructor, and I said, hello, who is this person? He said, ah, man. He said, you're not going to believe what happened. I said, what? His flight instructor kind of hell on wheels too. And I said, what happened? He said he was so nervous about the flight test that that he went to Zuniga's, which was a Mexican restaurant at the airport he was at, and powered down 3 beers before he flew over to see you. Oh my God. So that's why he was where the whole thing makes sense now. He wasn't quite in his right. So you can, and so what's my lesson? My lesson from that was, if it looks bad, don't start the test. Or if it looks like it, do some due diligence. I was just new, and I said, oh, FAA says teach, test, you're sure. And, just going through the motion. I had no experience as a pilot examiner except for the last 9 check rides, and they seemed to be working out okay. So this probably would too. I don't know.